I wasted 6 years of my life as Adrian Blake's wife, only to die in a car crash the very night I asked for a divorce. When I opened my eyes, I was 17 again, back in my school uniform, before the engagement, before the marriage, before the betrayal. This time I swore I'd never waste myself on him. But when Adrian stood before me, shoving me aside to protect his fragile childhood sweetheart, I realized the truth. He had been reborn too. I used to think time was the cruelest enemy. 6 years of my youth wasted in a marriage that left nothing but scars. No children, no warmth, no memories worth keeping. Just 6 winters of silence, 6 springs of betrayal, 6 summers of loneliness, and 6 autumns of lies. That afternoon, sitting in the quiet of our penthouse living room, I finally found the courage to end it. The divorce papers lay in front of me, crisp and final, their black ink sharp against the white paper. My hands trembled slightly as I slid them across the glass table toward Adrian Blake. He didn't even look at them. He sat there with one arm stretched lazily over the back of the sofa, scrolling through his phone like I hadn't just ended our marriage. His profile was sharp in the late afternoon light, as flawless as a statue's. Even after all these years, he was beautiful, breathtaking even, but I'd learned that beauty was just another weapon in his arsenal. Divorce, I said, forcing strength into my voice. I'm done. For a second, his thumb stilled on the phone screen. Then he laughed under his breath, low and derisive, and finally set the phone down. His eyes, dark, cool, always unreadable, met mine with a flicker of something like amusement. You've been threatening this for years, Elena. His lips curved into a mocking smile. Are you finally serious, or is this just another one of your tantrums? Tantrum. The word sliced deeper than it should have. In his eyes, every tear I'd shed over his betrayals, every confrontation I'd braved after overhearing his calls with Lila Hart, every desperate attempt to hold our marriage together, was nothing but a tantrum. I inhaled slowly. My nails dug into my palm beneath the table, but my voice came out steady. Yes. I'm serious. He blinked once, slowly, then leaned back and spread his arms arrogantly across the sofa. You won't last a week without me. For 6 years, that sentence would have been enough to crush me. I would have begged him not to leave, promised to be better, clung to him like a drowning woman clings to driftwood. But today his words meant nothing. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and left without looking back. The rain had started by the time I slid into my car. Heavy sheets of it hammered the windshield, each droplet catching the city lights and shattering it into fragments. The wipers squealed back and forth, but my vision still blurred. I drove anyway. The divorce papers were still on the table, untouched. But for the first time in years I felt lighter. Not happy, not free, just lighter. Divorce meant release. It meant no longer waiting for a man who would never come home, no longer sharing a bed with a ghost, no longer being a stand-in for someone else's white moonlight. The phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Adrian's name lit up. I should have ignored it. God knows I should have. But habit is a powerful leash, and even after everything, I picked up. Elena. His voice barked through the speaker, sharp, impatient. You think you can just walk out like that? You think it's that easy? My grip tightened on the wheel. The rain blurred everything outside. Adrian, I whispered, I don't want to fight anymore. It's over. But he didn't stop. He never did. His voice rose and rose, accusations spilling like venom. And then, headlights. A blinding flash. The sound of tires screaming on wet asphalt. The shriek of a horn, sharp and endless. The world spun, glass shattering, metal twisting, pain ripping through me until nothing. When I opened my eyes again, I thought I was in a dream. The ceiling was plain, painted cream, with a ceiling fan turning lazily overhead. Not the chandelier of the penthouse. Not the sterile white of a hospital. I sat up with a start. My heart slammed against my ribs. My body felt different, lighter, smaller. My hands were pale and smooth, no faint scars from cooking, no faint lines from years of stress. I stumbled to the mirror across the room. The face that stared back at me was mine, but not the 28-year-old woman hollowed out by 6 years of misery. 17. Wide-eyed. Unscarred. My school uniform hung on the chair by the desk. Posters of ballet dancers still lined the wall. A calendar marked January 2007. My knees buckled. I grabbed the edge of the desk to stay upright. Somehow, impossibly, I was back. Back in my old room. Back before the engagement. Back before Adrian Blake became my husband. A sob ripped out of me. I pressed a trembling hand over my mouth, laughter and tears mingling in a storm I couldn't control. God, or fate or whatever cruel force ruled the world had given me another chance. I could change everything. The days that followed felt surreal. My mother fussed over my pale face, urging me to eat more. My father called me into his study, asking what university I was aiming for. I gave vague answers, my mind still half in another lifetime. In my last life I had ruined everything by tethering myself to Adrian. I had deliberately left exam questions blank so we could go to the same university. I had given up opportunities, friendships, ambitions, all for him. And in return he had given me nothing but betrayal. This time I vowed I would live differently. But fate had a twisted sense of humor. Because I soon realized Adrian was not acting like the naive boy I remembered from high school. His gaze lingered on me differently now, warier, sharper. He avoided me with a deliberate edge, as if he already knew what would happen if our paths tangled. And Lila Hart? She hovered closer than ever, her fragile coughs and tear-filled eyes drawing him like a moth to a flame. It was only then that the truth slammed into me like ice water. Adrian Blake had been reborn too. That realization kept me awake at night. If he remembered everything, then he already knew I had been his wife, the source of his wealth, his shield, his stepping stone. He also knew he had betrayed me, humiliated me, discarded me for Lila. And if he was reborn, then so was his determination. This time he would cling to her openly, fight for her more ruthlessly, cut ties with me faster. Good. Let him. Because this time I had no intention of being his savior. On the afternoon of New Year's Eve, my mother knocked gently on my door. Elena, remember we're dining with the Blake family tonight. Or something nice. Your father wants to make a good impression. My fingers froze around the ribbon I was tying in my hair. That dinner. In my last life, that dinner had sealed my fate. Our families had sat together, laughter filling the dining hall, and the understanding between us was quietly finalized. I had become Adrian's fiancée that night, too afraid of disappointing my parents to say no. But now I knew better. I smoothed down my dress, meeting my own reflection in the mirror. My heart no longer raced with dread. Instead, a strange calm filled me like the eye of a storm. This time Adrian might think he was in control. This time he might think breaking the engagement would free him. But the truth was simple. I was the one already free. And I would never waste another moment of my life on him again. The streets outside the restaurant glowed with lantern light, each window dressed in red silk for the new year. Inside, the air was heavy with warmth, laughter, and the clatter of dishes. My family had reserved a private hall on the top floor. The Morgans and the Blakes, two families bound by years of friendship, about to be bound by marriage. At least that was what the elders thought. I stepped out of the elevator, smoothing my dress with steady fingers. My heartbeat was calm, almost unnaturally so. In my last life, this night had been the quiet death of my freedom. But this time I knew better. Elena. The voice came from the corner of the hallway. Weak. Trembling. Carefully calculated. I turned. Lila Hart stood there like a porcelain doll drenched in moonlight. She wore a pale blue dress that made her skin look even paler, her thin shoulders shivering though the restaurant was heated. Her eyes brimmed with tears the instant I met them. Miss Morgan, she whispered, clutching her hands tightly in front of her chest. Please. Don't take Adrian away from me. I blinked once, then tilted my head. My bodyguards immediately stepped forward, blocking her path, but I lifted a hand. Stand back, I murmured. I wanted to see where this performance would go. Lila stumbled closer, her lips trembling as tears spilled freely down her cheeks. I know you're beautiful, accomplished, from a wealthy family. You could have any man you want. But Adrian, he's all I have. He's my whole world. Please. I beg you, let him go. In my past life, those words would have pierced straight through my heart. I had thought myself a villain then, the obstacle between two star-crossed lovers. I had pitied her fragility, her coughs, her delicate frame that seemed always one breath away from collapse. But tonight I only felt a quiet amusement. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Where on earth did you get that idea, Miss Hart? I've never tried to take Adrian from you. He blinked rapidly, stunned. This wasn't the script she expected. I took a step closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. If you're so afraid of losing him, maybe ask yourself why. A love worth keeping doesn't need theatrics. Her face flushed scarlet, but before she could reply, "Elena!" The shout cut through the hall like a blade. I turned slowly. Adrian Blake stood behind me, tall and sharp in his tailored suit, his eyes blazing with anger. In a single stride, he was at Lila's side, his hand gripping her arm with tender urgency. Then without hesitation he shoved me back. I caught myself on the arm of one of my bodyguards, my balance steady, but my chest tightened with something cold. Not hurt. Not heartbreak. Just the bitter recognition of déjà vu. Who else could it be but Adrian? My husband of 6 years in the last life. My betrayer. My executioner. He dropped to his knees to help Lila up, his expression soft, overflowing with a tenderness I had never seen directed at me. "Lila, I promised you I'd end this engagement tonight. Why did you come here and suffer through her humiliation? What if you hurt yourself? What if your health gets worse? I'd feel awful." Lila coughed delicately, her hand clutching his sleeve. "I'm fine, Adrian. I was afraid." The picture they painted together was flawless. The fragile beauty and her devoted protector. The world's sympathy would always side with them. I straightened, brushed the dust from my skirt and raised an eyebrow. "So, you've already decided to cancel the engagement." He turned on me then, his eyes filled with a disgust that twisted his handsome features into something cruel. "Elena, you knew Lila was weak and you still made her kneel. You really are vicious." His voice dripped with hatred. "But no matter what tricks you play, there will never be anything between us." The words, the tone, so familiar they burned. In that moment, every suspicion crystallized. There was no longer any doubt. Adrian Blake had been reborn too. Dinner was torture, but not for me. We sat side by side, silent as stone. The air around us was so cold it made the steaming dishes taste like ash. I picked at my food politely, ignoring him completely. The real storm came later. "Elena and Adrian are all grown up now," Mrs. Blake said warmly, her voice cutting through the strained air. "I think it's time we set the date." The room stilled. Then crush. Adrian's wine glass shattered against the floor, red liquid spilling like blood across the white tablecloth. My fork clattered softly against porcelain as I set it down. He rose, face grim, and bowed stiffly to my parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Morgan," he said firmly, "I believe the understanding between our families should end here. I already have someone I love. I made a promise to her, and I intend to keep it for the rest of my life." The silence that followed was suffocating. My father's jaw tightened. My mother's expression darkened. Across the table, Mrs. Blake went pale before bursting into frantic protest. But I lowered my eyes and hid the smile tugging at my lips. So he thought he had humiliated me. He thought he had freed himself for his so-called true love. But the truth was, he had freed me. And I would never waste this new life on him again. Sometimes I think the cruelest part of rebirth is memory. It doesn't fade. It doesn't blur with the mercy of time. It comes back sharper, brighter, like every wound has been carved fresh into my bones. Even as I sat at that dinner table watching Adrian Blake declare his eternal promise to Lila Hart, my mind flickered back to the years I had wasted on him. In my past life, I truly believed marriage meant forever. I walked down the aisle in white lace, clutching a bouquet of roses, thinking I was the luckiest woman alive. Adrian stood at the end, tall and striking in his suit, his lips curved in the faint smile that had once melted me. Thought he loved me. I thought he would learn to love me more. But from the very first night in our home, I realized the truth. He stayed out late. He laughed on the balcony with his phone pressed to his ear, his voice soft and warm in a way it never was with me. The name slipped through once, and though I pretended not to hear, I carried it with me like a splinter lodged under skin. Lila. Always Lila. I tried everything. Cooking his favorite meals, dressing the way he liked, swallowing my pride to ask his opinion on the smallest things. Every smile I earned was cold, polite, never reaching his eyes. He treated me not like a wife but like an accessory. A golden chain around his neck, gleaming because of the Morgan family name. For a while I lied to myself. I told myself he was simply aloof, that his heart would warm with time. But the evidence piled too high. The way he avoided me in public as though ashamed to be seen with me. The way his mother, Mrs. Blake, constantly reminded me how fortunate I was to have him, while taking every advantage of my family's wealth. The way he never once reached for me when I reached for him. And then, the night he came home with a troubled face. "Elena," he said, voice uncharacteristically soft. I remember looking up, startled, heart fluttering foolishly. Maybe I thought he finally wanted to talk. Maybe he finally cared. But then he told me Lila was sick. Born prematurely, he said. Fragile health. She needed a major surgery and it cost a fortune. His eyes, so cold with me, shone with desperation for her. He asked me for $1 million. Not for us. Not for our future. For Lila. I still remember the silence after his words. I had given him everything. Status, wealth, a comfortable life where he never had to lift a finger. And now he was asking me to fund the woman who had haunted our marriage like a ghost. Something inside me cracked. "No," I whispered. "Adrian, she's not your responsibility." His expression darkened. "She's my only love. Don't you get it? Marrying you was just about the money. You gave me peace of mind so I could focus on saving her. But Elena, Sophia is my everything." The name fell like a blade. I slapped him. Hard. My palm stung, but the greater pain was in my chest. He didn't hit back. He didn't even flinch. He simply straightened his collar, calm and cold, and whispered words I will never forget. "That's the difference between you and her. With Lila, I feel like a man. With you, I feel like a dog on a leash." I didn't cry that night. Instead, I laughed. A hollow, broken laugh that rattled through the empty house. I had clothed him, fed him, lifted him into the world of luxury. Every suit he wore, every car he drove, every title he flaunted, President Blake, was built on my father's empire. And still he dared to talk about dignity. That night I told him I wanted a divorce. But fate didn't let me go so easily. It was raining. I was driving back to the estate after filing the papers. The phone rang. His name lit up. Against my better judgment, I answered. His voice roared through the line, accusing, mocking, refusing to let me go. We argued, my grip tight on the wheel, tears burning my eyes. And then, a blinding flash. A horn. The sound of metal twisting, glass shattering, my body breaking. Darkness. I died that night. I know I did. The coroner's report would have said instant. They would have buried me with roses, with polite words about tragic accidents, whispered behind black veils. But in the cold silence of death, something else lived inside me. Hatred. Hatred so deep it scorched through every vein, every bone, every memory. For Adrian. For Lila. For my own foolishness. It was that hatred that brought me back. When I woke in my teenage body, at first I thought it was madness. But no, it was a gift. A cruel one perhaps, but a gift nonetheless. Now, as I sat across from Adrian in this second life, watching him throw away our engagement for Lila with self-righteous conviction, I felt only a cold satisfaction. Because I knew exactly where this path would lead him. To misery. To betrayal. To ruin. And this time I wouldn't be dragged down with him. The morning bell rang sharp and clear across the schoolyard. Rows of students streamed through the gates, some clutching steaming buns, others balancing textbooks against their chests. For me, it was a return to a world I had once taken for granted. In my last life, I had walked these same halls with a single thought pulsing in my head. Don't fall behind Adrian. Don't let him out of sight. I had been so terrified of losing him that I lost myself instead. Even when I had the grades to aim for the top universities, I deliberately blanked out questions on the entrance exam just so we could be admitted together. 4 years wasted at a second-rate school just to stay at his side. And what did it bring me? A cold marriage. A lonely death. This time my textbooks weren't a burden, they were a weapon. Every formula, every essay draft, every late-night review session was one more brick laid in the foundation of a life that had nothing to do with Adrian Blake. Of course, fate had other ideas. Adrian, you can't cover for her forever. The voice rang down the hallway one afternoon as I rounded the corner. A cluster of students blocked the way ahead, their chatter rising in excitement. I slipped through the crowd, my curiosity piqued. At the center stood Adrian. His tall frame was tense, his jaw clenched. Beside him, clutching a handkerchief like a lifeline, was Lila Hart. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, her lips quivering as if she were about to break into sobs at any moment. "What's going on?" someone whispered near me. "The class fee went missing," another replied. 800 yuan. Lila was supposed to hold it, but she says it's gone. Adrian's trying to defend her. 800 yuan. In the grand scheme of life, a small sum. But for a high schooler, it was enough to buy weeks of lunches. Enough to start rumors, to ruin reputations. I leaned against the wall, folding my arms, and watched. The class monitor stood across from Adrian, his voice sharp. If you insist on protecting her, then fine. But since the money's gone while in her hands, either she returns it or you do. Someone has to take responsibility. Adrian's brows knit together. In my past life, he would have tossed the money without a thought, because it was my money. Back then, my allowance, my family's wealth had been his safety net. But now, he was just a reborn 17-year-old with a working-class background. 800 yuan wasn't pocket change anymore. His hesitation was clear in the tightening of his jaw, the way his fingers twitched. He started, but Lila's soft voice cut in. This isn't Adrian's fault. She dabbed at her eyes delicately. I lost it. I'll figure something out. Her martyr act earned a wave of sympathetic sighs from the crowd. I almost rolled my eyes. I let out a short, amused scoff. The sound sliced through the tense silence. Adrian's head snapped toward me instantly, his eyes narrowing like daggers. Elena, he spat, his voice dripping with contempt. What are you doing here? Come to laugh at us. The crowd stirred, whispers buzzing. I blinked innocently. Laugh? What? I'm just trying to get to class. You're the ones blocking the hallway with your little drama. His expression darkened, suspicion flaring in his gaze. Don't play dumb. You've always had a thing for me. This, he gestured to the scene around us, is just another one of your tricks to get my attention, isn't it? The arrogance. The sheer delusion of it. For a moment I was too stunned to even speak. Then slowly a smile curved my lips, not warm but razor sharp. Adrian, I said sweetly, tilting my head, do you honestly think I'd waste my time scheming for your attention? How flattering. The crowd snickered, a ripple of laughter passing through the students. Adrian's face turned stormy, his fists clenching at his sides. Zach, did you pay our class fee yet? I turned deliberately away from him, calling out to a tall boy behind the crowd. Noah Sinclair stepped forward, his uniform neat, his posture relaxed, his expression carrying the calm steadiness that Adrian lacked in every possible way. His eyes met mine and a faint smile touched his lips. Not yet, he said easily. Want to go after class? Sure. I smiled back, slipping my wallet from my bag. We should also grab lunch after. We need to plan for the sports festival. Noah nodded, his tone casual, but his eyes lingered on me a beat longer than necessary. Proactive. Different. Behind us, I could practically feel the heat of Adrian's glare burning into my back. The monitor pressed again. So Adrian, what'll it be? If she won't pay, then you. Adrian dug into his pocket with stiff fingers, pulling out a crumpled stack of bills. He smoothed them out furiously, his face twisted with humiliation. Here, he snapped, thrusting them forward. Don't ever drag Lila into this again. The monitor accepted the money, but the smirk on his face said it all. I raised my brows, watching Adrian's forced chivalry with detached amusement. So this is what you've come to? I thought. No luxury cars. No fancy suits. Just scraps and bruised pride. I let out a low whistle and tapped Noah's arm. Come on. Let's get that lunch. He chuckled, falling into step beside me as we left the crowd behind. Behind us, I knew Adrian's fury was boiling over. That night, lying in bed, I thought about the confrontation. In my past life, I would have jumped in to smooth things over for him, to hand over the money without hesitation. I would have defended him, shielded him, destroyed my own reputation if it meant keeping him safe. But this time, I didn't lift a finger. And watching him squirm, watching him feel the sting of poverty, the humiliation of reality, it felt like justice. For the first time, Adrian Blake was tasting what life was like without me. And it was only the beginning. It is said that wealth is like a drug. You can get used to it in an instant, but once it's gone, the withdrawal is brutal. I watched Adrian Blake go through that withdrawal like a man drowning in slow motion. In our past life, he had lived like a king on the back of my family's fortune. Rolls-Royces at his disposal, imported wines stocked in our cellar, fine suits tailored to his frame. Even his casual arrogance had been gilded by luxury. People mistook it for charm because of the Morgan name behind him. But in this life stripped of my support, he was nothing more than a poor student with calloused hands and an overinflated ego. I first noticed the change when whispers started circulating through the school. Did you hear? Adrian's working part-time at a cafe on East Street. No way. Blake. He always acts so proud. I saw him bussing tables last night. Looked exhausted. I didn't go looking for him. But fate, as always, had a cruel sense of humor. One evening after class, I passed the cafe on my way home. Through the window I caught sight of him, shirt sleeves rolled up, wiping down sticky tables with a rag. His shoulders hunched, his face pale with fatigue. Yet when Lila Hart appeared at the door with her delicate cough and wide, watery eyes, Adrian straightened immediately. He even smiled. The smile I had begged for in another lifetime. I felt no sting this time. Only a cool, detached pity. Of course, Adrian's pride was a beast that refused to die quietly. A week later, the school held its sports festival. The air smelled of dust and fried snacks, banners fluttering in the breeze. Students milled about, laughing, competing, chasing each other with paper megaphones. At the end of the day, I left the schoolyard with Noah Sinclair at my side. We had just finished organizing our class booth together. My family's Rolls-Royce was waiting at the gates, gleaming under the sunlight. The crowd parted with hushed murmurs. I barely noticed, but Adrian did. He was there too, backpack slung over one shoulder, clearly on his way to another shift. His eyes locked on the car instantly. I knew that look. In our past life he had adored this car. He'd driven it as if it were a crown, basking in the envy it inspired. Seeing it again must have struck him like a whip. His steps quickened. He walked straight toward the car, expression smug, as though the universe had finally proven him right. Elena Morgan couldn't possibly let go. The driver stepped forward, opening the back door with a respectful bow. Adrian moved to climb in. And then the driver's hand shot out, shoving him back. "Who the hell do you think you are?" the driver barked. "This isn't your car." Gasps rippled through the watching students. Adrian's face flushed crimson. He rounded on the driver furiously. "Don't you recognize me? I used to ride in this car all the time. Say the word and I'll have you fired." The driver sneered. "Recognize you? Why would I recognize a stray dog? Our young miss is behind you. Who do you think you are to steal her car seat?" The crowd laughed. Adrian froze. Slowly, stiffly he turned and saw me. I stepped forward, calm, composed, Noah's arm brushing mine as he matched my pace. I tilted my head, meeting Adrian's furious, humiliated gaze. "Ryan, don't you think you're being ridiculous?" His eyes burned. "You're doing this on purpose, aren't you? Parading this car in front of me, showing off, trying to get my attention." I laughed out loud. The sound echoed like crystal shattering. "Your attention?" I repeated, amusement dripping from every syllable. "Do you really think you're worth that much?" The laughter from the students grew louder. Adrian's face twisted, veins standing out in his neck. He looked like he might explode, but he said nothing as Noah gently guided me into the car. As the door closed, I caught one last glimpse of Adrian's expression: fury, humiliation, disbelief. And I realized then just how delusional he truly was. His decline only grew more obvious after that. The once proud boy now smelled of grease from his part-time shifts. His crisp uniforms became wrinkled and stained. He grew thinner, his cheeks hollowed. His hands, once manicured by idle living, were red and raw. And still he clung to Lila Hart. She appeared often, coughing prettily, eyes brimming with tears, murmuring about how she couldn't live without him. He fed her his wages, skipping his own meals to buy her medicine, walking her home in the cold with his threadbare jacket draped over her shoulders. To outsiders it might have looked romantic. To me it was pathetic, as I knew how it ended. In my past life I had watched him give her everything, even me. And in return she had smiled sweetly, accepted it all, and still clung to others when it suited her. History, I suspected, would repeat itself. Meanwhile, my own path shone brighter with every step. I ranked in the top 3 on exams. Teachers praised me in class. My father spoke proudly of me at family dinners. Noah's steady presence at my side became as natural as breathing. He didn't demand, didn't guilt, didn't belittle. He simply supported me, quietly but firmly, like a tree whose roots ran deep. The contrast was stark, and Adrian noticed. He saw the way classmates admired me, the way teachers singled me out for excellence, the way Noah's protective gaze lingered on me. And it ate at him. One afternoon he cornered me near the library. His face was pale with exhaustion, dark circles under his eyes, but his voice still dripped with venom. "Don't play these games, Elena. I know what you're doing. You think showing off with your grades, your money, your new boyfriend will make me jealous. You want me back, don't you? That's why you're putting on this act." I looked at him for a long moment, then shook my head slowly. "You really are delusional," I said softly. "I don't need to act, Adrian. This is just me, living a life that has nothing to do with you." For a heartbeat, silence stretched between us. His jaw worked, his fists clenched, his eyes searched mine as if hoping to find a lie. But there was none. I turned and walked away, leaving him standing in the shadow of the library steps, trembling with rage and disbelief. That night I wrote in my notebook, "Adrian Blake has already begun to fall. This time I will not be his safety net." The results came out on a humid summer afternoon. The school courtyard buzzed with nervous excitement as students crowded around the notice board, their voices rising in disbelief, laughter, tears. I pushed my way through the crowd, my heart steady, almost serene. There was my name, Morgan Elena, rank 3 year group. The letters blurred for a moment as my eyes stung, but this time it wasn't with sadness. It was relief. Vindication. In my last life I had deliberately held myself back, left questions blank, sabotaged my own exams so Adrian and I could get into the same mediocre university together. I had gambled my future on him. And lost everything. But this time my name was exactly where it belonged, at the top. When I got home that evening my mother nearly burst into tears. "Top 3 again. Elena, do you realize how proud you've made us?" She pulled me into her arms, fussing with my hair. "Your father is already talking about Tsinghua. Imagine our daughter at Tsinghua University." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. Tsinghua. The dream I had buried in my past life, sacrificed for a man who never cared. This time it was within reach. Noah Sinclair showed up later with a bottle of peach soda and a grin. "Knew you'd make top 3, he said casually, leaning against the gate. "I told the class you'd do it. Guess I was right again." My mother invited him in as she often did these days. She adored him, his neat manners, his steady voice, the way he always remembered to bring me snacks before late-night study sessions. As we sat at the dining table he slid a small packet toward me. "Extra set of problem sheets," he explained. "I thought we could go over them together tomorrow. Might help for the entrance prep." I glanced at him, at his quiet confidence, and something inside me softened. Noah wasn't dramatic. He wasn't flamboyant. He wasn't Adrian. And that was exactly what made him different. Adrian, meanwhile, was crumbling. I heard whispers in the hallways, saw it with my own eyes. He had taken a job at the school cafeteria, wiping grease off trays while students snickered behind his back. His once crisp uniform was wrinkled and stained, his shoes scuffed. His shoulders slumped under the weight of exhaustion. But still he clung to Lila Hart. I overheard him once, in the corner of the cafeteria, speaking into the phone with a desperation that almost sounded like madness. "Lila, I'll get you the money soon. Please don't cry. I'll transfer what I can after exams. Just hold on." His voice cracked and I saw the deep shadows under his eyes, the thinness of his face. In another life that sight would have broken me. But now I only felt cold clarity. He had chosen this path. He had chosen her. And I was done paying the price. The day the college entrance results came was one I will never forget. I had locked myself in my room, hands trembling as I typed in my exam number. And then, there it was. "Congratulations. You have been admitted to Tsinghua University." My heart pounded. My vision blurred. I let out a laugh, then a sob, then another laugh. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. The dream I had once thrown away had returned. This time I had taken it with my own hands. I ran downstairs, nearly tripping over myself, and burst into the living room. My parents looked up in alarm, then froze when they saw the screen in my hand. "Elena," my father whispered, his voice breaking. "Tsinghua." "Yes." I cried, tears streaming down my cheeks. "I got in." My mother covered her mouth with both hands, her eyes wet. My father pulled me into his arms, his shoulders trembling. For the first time in years I felt the warmth of true pride. I should have expected it. Of course Adrian would come. That evening, as the sunset painted the sky in shades of fire, I found him waiting outside the school gates. His uniform hung loose on his thinner frame, his eyes bloodshot, his fists clenched. "Elena," he called, his voice hoarse. "Wait." I stopped, my bag heavy on my shoulder, my heart steady. He strode up to me, fury and confusion warring in his expression. "Why is everything different now?" he demanded. I raised an eyebrow. "Different? Don't play dumb." His voice cracked, his chest heaving. "Back then during the exams you left questions blank. You said it yourself. You wanted us to go to the same university. But this time, you didn't. You aimed for Tinghua. You changed everything." I stayed silent, watching him unravel. His hands gripped my shoulders suddenly, too tight, almost desperate. "Elena, tell me the truth. You were reborn too, weren't you?" The world seemed to still around us. His eyes, wild, red, burning, searched mine as though the answer could undo his misery. For a moment I considered denying it, playing dumb as I had before. But what was the point? I met his gaze evenly. "Yes. I came back too." His face crumpled. He let out a hollow laugh, collapsing to his knees right there on the pavement. "Why?" His voice broke. "Why did it have to be you too? I thought I could finally escape. I thought this time I'd live for myself, for Lila. I thought I could start over. But you..." His hands shook as he pointed at me, hatred blazing in his eyes. "You ruined everything." I looked down at him, at the man I had once called my husband, the man I had once given everything to. And for the first time I felt nothing. "Adrian," I said quietly, "you ruined yourself. Don't blame me for that." Then I turned and walked away, leaving him kneeling in the fading light, his laughter and sobs echoing in the empty street. They say karma is patient. It doesn't always strike when you expect it, but when it arrives, it lands with precision. For Adrian Blake, karma wore the face of the woman he thought he couldn't live without. It began with whispers. "I saw Lila at the KTV with some guys the other night. Didn't she say she was sick? Please, she was laughing and drinking like nothing was wrong. Adrian's probably footing the bill." I didn't seek out the gossip. But word of scandal has a way of floating into ears that know how to listen. At first Adrian dismissed the rumors. I overheard him in the cafeteria one evening, his voice low but fierce as he clutched his phone. "Don't listen to them, Lila. They're jealous. They can't stand that we're happy. You're the only one I trust. The only one." I almost laughed aloud. But the truth doesn't stay hidden forever. One night Adrian received a video. It made its way through his circle of friends before landing in his hands, and by then half the school had already seen it. Lila, perched on the lap of a bleached-haired boy in a KTV booth, her arms draped around his neck. Music thudded in the background, glasses clinked, laughter rang. "Ugh, that idiot Adrian," her voice slurred, sweetened with alcohol. "He's probably still out working some crappy job. Every time I smell him I want to throw up. If it weren't for his money I wouldn't bother with him." The boy laughed, running his hand up her thigh. "Hang on a bit longer. Squeeze one more payout out of him, then I'll take you away." Lila giggled, pressing closer. "Deal." The video ended there, but the damage was complete. Adrian stormed into the cafeteria the next day, his face pale, his eyes bloodshot, clutching his phone like a weapon. He slammed it down in front of Lila, who had the audacity to feign surprise. "What the hell is this?" His voice cracked, carrying across the entire room. Conversations halted. Dozens of eyes turned. Lila stared at the screen for a long moment, then let out a soft, mocking laugh. "Well," she said coolly, "whose fault is it that you're so easy to fool?" Gasps rippled. Adrian staggered back as though struck. "Lila." She stood, smoothing her skirt, her expression unrepentant. "I told you I was sick and you killed yourself working part-time jobs to pay for my treatments. Honestly, I didn't think you'd actually be that dumb." "Stop." His voice trembled. "You know what?" She tilted her head, smiling cruelly. "I regret not pushing you to get together with Elena back then. Maybe if I had, I'd be rich by now." The words rang like gunfire. Adrian's hand shook violently before it flew across her cheek with a crack that silenced the room. Lila gasped, clutching her face, then spat venom. "You hit me. You pathetic loser. You think anyone would want you now?" I wasn't there when it happened, but I didn't need to be. By evening, the whole school was buzzing with the story of Adrian Blake's downfall. And the next morning he appeared at my family's estate. I was trimming roses in the garden when the gates creaked open. Adrian stumbled in, his uniform disheveled, his eyes sunken, his face a ghost of the man I had once married. "Elena," he rasped, dropping to his knees before me. His hands pressed against the damp earth, his forehead nearly touching the ground. "Please, forgive me. I was wrong. I was blind. Lila, she used me, she lied to me. But you were my wife for years. You cared for me. Please give me one more chance." The silver shears in my hand glinted under the sun. I snipped a thorn, letting it fall to the soil, and looked down at him with calm, cold eyes. "You told me once not to cling to you, Adrian. Do you remember?" His throat bobbed as he swallowed, shame flickering across his face. "I didn't know then. I regret it now. Elena, I'll do anything, anything to prove myself." I tilted my head. "Anything?" "Yes." His voice cracked. "Anything. Then go die." The words dropped like ice. Adrian froze, his eyes wide, lips parting soundlessly. "Elena, don't say things like that. We had good memories too. You can't tell me you've forgotten." His voice was desperate, trembling. I leaned closer, meeting his gaze. "Memories? My memories are of me lowering myself again and again, begging for scraps of affection while you lavished love on someone else. Do you know what I remember most? The night you told me you felt like a dog on a leash with me. That's what you left me with, Adrian. And now you want forgiveness." He reached out with trembling hands, but I stepped back. "That's enough. I don't want to see you again." That night the rain poured heavy and relentless. The housekeeper told me later that Adrian knelt outside the estate all night, soaked to the bone, muttering apologies to the empty air. But I knew the truth. It wasn't me he wanted back. It was the life I had given him, the wealth, the power, the prestige, the golden leash he had once spat on. And that was something I would never give him again. Life has a way of rewarding those who finally choose themselves. 4 months, I buried myself in study sessions, part-time projects, and stolen hours with Noah Sinclair. The more time I spent with him, the more I realized just how different he was from Adrian. Where Adrian demanded, Noah offered. Where Adrian took, Noah gave. Where Adrian saw me as a tool, Noah saw me as a partner. And my parents noticed. My mother, who had once fretted over my future with the Blakes, now glowed with approval whenever Noah came to visit. My father, once skeptical of any young man, took Noah into his study to discuss politics and business, impressed by his steady mind. At dinner they praised him openly. "That boy has a future," my father said one night, raising his glass. "And he cares for you, Elena. That's all that matters." For the first time in 2 lives I felt truly seen. Meanwhile, Adrian Blake was unraveling. I heard about it in fragments, snippets of gossip, whispers in corridors, murmurs at family banquets. He had dropped out of university entrance prep altogether, too drained from endless part-time jobs. His grades sank, his mother wailed, and his once polished presence had turned ragged. And then came the final blow. The story spread like wildfire. A woman had stormed into a bar where Adrian was working, intending to throw acid on her cheating boyfriend's mistress. But fate, always cruel, had other plans. The bottle shattered across Adrian instead. He survived. But his face, the same face that had once been praised as handsome, the same face I had once stared at with foolish devotion, was ruined. When I heard, I didn't rejoice. I didn't pity him either. I simply felt nothing. Because by then Adrian Blake had already been dead to me for a long time. Time moved forward. Noah and I both received admission letters. Mine from Tsinghua, his from Tsinghua University. Our names were posted together on the school bulletin board, whispered about in hallways, celebrated by teachers. "You two are the golden pair," someone teased one day. "Brains, looks, family background. Everyone envies you." Noah only smiled, sliding an arm casually around my shoulders, his warmth grounding me. "As long as she's happy," he said, glancing at me. "That's all I care about." And I believed him. Because he had never once made me feel small. We left for Beijing that summer, our luggage packed, our futures wide open. My parents threw a farewell banquet, the hall lit with golden chandeliers, our relatives offering toasts and congratulations. I wore a silk dress, Noah at my side in a sharp suit, his hand warm against mine. Across the room I caught a glimpse of Adrian. He had slipped in somehow, standing at the edge of the crowd like a shadow. His face bore the scars of the accident, jagged lines twisting across ruined skin. His suit was ill-fitting, his shoes worn. He looked at me with hollow eyes, filled with something between longing and rage. I didn't flinch. I didn't acknowledge him. I simply turned back to Noah, smiling as he raised his glass to my father. And in that moment I knew the past had finally been buried. I heard later that Adrian's life never recovered. His mother disowned him after years of disappointment. He drifted between menial jobs, mocked by co-workers for his appearance, jeered at by strangers in bars. He tried to claw his way back into my orbit, tried to plead, tried to threaten. But each attempt ended the same, with silence. Because I owed him nothing. Years later, Noah proposed in a garden filled with roses. I said yes. The world celebrated with us, magazines calling ours a storybook romance, friends envying the bond we had built. We traveled to Norway, to Paris, to cities I had only dreamed of in my past life. We built a home, a future, a love that was steady, enduring, and real. And Adrian? He saw it only once more. From across a street in downtown Beijing, scarred and hollow, he spotted me stepping out of a car, Noah's arm around my waist. My laughter carried in the air as Noah whispered something in my ear, his kiss brushing my temple. Adrian called my name once, voice breaking. But the sound was lost in the roar of traffic, in the rush of a world that no longer cared. He stumbled after us, chasing until his legs gave out and he collapsed on the pavement. And in that final moment he understood what I had known all along. He had lost me forever. The end.